Hello, this is Allie with the Perception Trainers, author of The Perception Diet, and today we are going to talk about why self-love is so scary and so hard. And yes, in so many of my videos I have talked about, the consensus reality, how people are working and all these things. And we've talked a lot about why self-love is such a challenge for so many people. And why in so many ways we have been born and raised into a world that teaches us not to love ourselves. Like literally, we're born into a reality where we are taught from day one not to love ourselves. And in today's video, I just want to go a little bit deeper into this and why, again, so many of us have such deep core resistance to self-love, and why so many of us, when we think we're doing a self-love path, really aren't. Because again, our intention is still on some level to change ourselves, and hoping that there truly is still an idea that there's something that needs to change about us before we're going to be deserving of love. And so we're doing our self-love practices hoping that that in doing self-love we're going to change and become these people we want to be, and then be worthy of love. And so the very first core foundational thing to understand about why self-love is so scary is because we live in a society that fears diversity, that does not understand that diversity is the spice of life, is the entire reason the universe is expanding, is literally the whole entire frickin' point of reality, is that connection and oneness is the reality. That is already the truth. We are all one. Everything is connected to everything else. There is nowhere for anything else to go. But in order for the source to know about itself, it had to break itself down into its component parts to be observed, to have an experience. And in this, consciousness is expanding. This is exactly how it works. Yes? And we've talked about this in the last 3 videos, that the whole point of this is the separation experience. Now, separation being an illusion, we are not actually separate, right? The liver is not actually separate from the body. It is one with the body. It operates in its specific individual way, but it is the body, and the body is it. It is one with the body. It is at once separate and individual. But again, we understand more about the body, the more we understand about the liver. The more we understand about the liver, the more we understand about the body. It's all one thing. So us having this separation experience is the point of life. Consciousness already knows itself as one thing. It doesn't know itself as its individual parts and how that all makes it, right? In order for anything to be understood, it has to be taken apart. The component parts must be understood in order for the whole to be understood. So we're having this separation experience where the one and only thing that actually matters, that the only thing that generates new information, which is what keeps life going, yes? Because again, the void, all potential, meaning all information being projected out as specific potentials. That is what is creating life. In order for that to happen, it needs to be continually fed new information. And that new information only comes from new experience. New experience can only come from singularity. Each individual person and every single experience you have is a singularity. So this is how the universe is knowing itself. This is how life is propagating itself. This is how expansion and awareness is all happening. It is through the individual singularity experience. You being you, that's different from everybody else, completely informs everything else. It completely impacts everything else because it creates the probabilities for everything else. Yes, so it's all this one big soup of creation. But we have gotten it so confused in our human life that being different, being separate, is the scariest thing in the world. We are all scrambling to get back to the womb of void, where there was no separation. There was just awareness of the self, right? It was the self having an awareness experience of itself, but there was no separation. That's where we're all clamoring back to. That's what we're all rejecting about life. And so, of course, the source of our pain, the source of our struggle, the source of our suffering is going to apparently be that we are an individual who is separated from everybody else, who is not like anybody else, who could never be fully and completely understood by somebody else, because we all have a specific perspective, a specific perception, a specific way of being, set of experiences that makes us us, that we can't be in our relative experience completely connected with all that is. And that's what we're wanting to get back to, because that feels like home, because that's where we all came from. Yes? If you watched all these other videos, you know we were born from the womb of void, of pure potentiality, of just awareness being aware of itself, information being aware of information, but no experience. And information cannot expand upon itself unless it's taken itself apart, had a specific experience, learned something new by that specific experience, and therefore creating more information, which then creates the potentiality for more life. So we are grappling existentially, every single one of us, with this idea that being separate is wrong, because it means we're not all connected. And this is why we don't want to love ourselves. This is why we don't want to accept ourselves. This is why we are so afraid that this being that we are is wrong and bad, because it doesn't match anybody else. It's not exactly like anyone or anything else. This is why we're so desperate for groups and group connection and societal approval. Because again, we're trying to get back to this place where we all recognize each other as being one. But the fatal flaw that we've made is that we're saying, because we're not all projecting the same way, we're different. We're separate. And that's bad. And so we are all so deathly afraid to love ourselves, because we're afraid that's admitting I'm separate forever. That's what we're afraid of. We're so afraid of saying, I love myself and I accept myself as being completely unique. Because this is the thing. If we're gonna truly love and accept who we are, part and parcel with that package is that we accept and embrace that we are unique. We are like no one else. No one else is like us. We never will be like anyone else. No one else ever will be like us. We are different. We are singularity. We are the only one that's ever going to fully understand our experience in this carnation. And that is heart-wrenching for most of us. So we would rather stay on this cycle of trying to fix ourselves and change ourselves and improve ourselves and do all these things. What does that really mean? Why are we trying to fix ourselves? Why are we trying to change ourselves? Why are we trying to improve ourselves? We're all trying to become whatever it is that we think the people around us want us to be, so that we will be accepted. Because if we're accepted, then we're all agreeing we're connected. That's what we're looking for. And so we're really thinking, if I keep being how I am, with my flaws and my weaknesses and the things that make me not what everyone else thinks I should be, right? Which again, if we really look at all this, we're going to start to see the things we think of as flaws, the things we think of as being wrong with us, the things that we think of as being what we need to fix about ourselves, come in two categories. First category, completely arbitrary, made up by the society that just said, okay, we're going to make rules for how to be connected. And if you can't follow these rules, and they were usually based on survival at first, and they've just kind of evolved since then, and like I say, we don't see them as being that anymore because they've been so far removed from their source, but that's essentially what they are. And, or two, and kind of, I don't know that these things are really separate. They're rooted in this idea that there are universal laws and principles that we all do need to live by. And that when we are opposing those universal laws and principles, we are opposing life. And so here's the big kicker. Okay? In order to ever feel connected to everything, which is what you want, you have to embrace yourself. Because it is only through the experience of being who you are that you can have an awareness of and a connection to the universal. It is only through being the relative that you can experience being connected. And if you are rejecting any aspect of yourself because all things are one, you are at the same time rejecting aspects of the universal. You are rejecting aspects of all that is, which means you, by rejecting yourself in order to feel more connected, are actually cutting yourself off from the rest of everything. This is how this really works. Because separation is an illusion, meaning it is an experience you are having. It is like the liver saying, I am somehow not a part of the body. I am just the liver and I'm out here on my own. No, it isn't. The liver is having a unique experience within the whole of the body. Every single person is having a unique experience of information generation through being specific within the context of the whole. So we need to understand this. That the more we try to disconnect ourselves from what we are, because what we are is intrinsically connected to the whole, that we disconnect ourselves from the whole. Right? The more the liver tries to sacrifice itself for the kidneys, for the stomach, for the spleen, it dies. The more the liver tries to get rid of itself, the less connected it is going to be to the body. The more the liver allows tissues of itself to die, those tissues become necrotic. They're no longer part of the network of the body. You see what I'm saying here? The more the liver cuts itself off from being what it is, the more it cuts itself off from the rest of it. So if the liver thinks, I'm going to get rid of this and get rid of this and get rid of this and be more connected to the whole, no, it isn't. More and more and more of the liver will then start to be cut off from nutrients, from oxygen, from the circulatory system. Yes? Because it's dead. Why would life feed into a tissue that's dead? It's not going to. So we need to think of it like this. The more of yourself you are cutting off, the more of yourself you are rejecting, the more of yourself you are trying to get rid of, for the sake of being connected. You need to understand, life is not going to feed into something that's dead. Life does not feed in to something that is dead. Necrotic tissue has no more life, no more circulation, no more nutrients, no more blood, no more life flowing in. It's dead. It's liberated. The animating energy that was occupying it is gone. Life is not feeding it anymore. It is less connected to all that is. It is exactly the same with us. So what we need to understand is that every single time you try and get rid of a part of yourself, every single time you fight with a part of yourself, every single time you think there's something wrong with you and I shouldn't be this way, and you try to cut it off, you try to get rid of it, you try to fix it. My anxiety is wrong and bad. My depression is wrong and bad. My eating disorder is wrong and bad. My fat is wrong and bad. My way that I behave is wrong and bad. How I feel about my mom, how I feel about my dad, how I feel about any of my experiences, what I think, what I'm doing, what I desire, what I don't desire. Anything that is a part of you, right here, right now, that you are trying to get rid of, is disconnecting you from the whole. And as we are disconnected from the whole, we become less intelligent. Because less information, less life is funneled into that which is cut off. Yes? So this is the hugest thing, which means you then become more chaotic, less aware, less understanding of how things work. You then become more self-destructive. Yes? Because you're less aware now. Every time you try to destroy yourself, you cut yourself off from information. Every time you cut yourself off from information, you become less ordered, more chaotic, less intelligent, which then is going to cause you to want to separate further, make things simpler, cut another thing off, which then makes you more chaotic, more self-destructive, less connected to life, less information, dumber again. And this is how we degrade into nothing. So all of us who are trying to get rid of or fix or change ourselves in an attempt to be connected to life, which is what we're doing, are doing the exact opposite of what's going to do that. The more you connect with yourself, the more you love who you are, the more you embrace all the things that you are horrified of, that you hate, that you think are the worst thing about you, the thing that separates you from everybody else, the things that makes you broken, all these self-sabotaging behaviors, the more you embrace that, the more what happens is, right? It's like, again, all of a sudden, circulation is brought back to that necrotic tissue. Life is brought back to that part of your being that has been cut off. The part that has anxiety, the part that has depression, the part that overeats, the part that undereats, the parts that gets in terrible relationships, the part, but we spend time with them. We love them. Because what this does is it brings information, brings life to these parts of ourselves that are dying. So we need to think of it like this. The parts of yourself that you're rejecting and you're hating and you're trying to get rid of are the dead and dying parts of you. The dead and dying parts of you are what is cutting you off from life, that are what you are using to cut yourself off from life. The more parts of you that are dead, rotting, not connected, the less of you that is available to be connected with. The more dead tissue in your liver, the less liver life has to act upon. The more you bring life back to the parts of yourself that exist, the more you're going to understand them, the more intelligent they're going to become, the more unified with the whole they become because they're more intelligent. This is what happens. You recognize, oh, this part of me that hated myself because of this actually needed this and should do this, and this is how this works. And so again, we love these aspects of ourselves. And this is how we start to feel more connected from the inside. We may, on the outside, appear to be more disconnected from society than ever. So this is something we need to understand. This stuff may get us rejected. And almost most likely will. Because we live in a culture that celebrates death. That is dying. That celebrates cut off, cut off, cut off, cut off, cut off. Get dumber, get simpler. We're watching this. You start to become more intelligent, more awake, more aware, more integrated. You're going to live in a way that's very different from everybody else. But that's okay because you're going to feel more connected to anyone than you've ever been. Literally, this is how this works. So it's all paradox. The more connected to yourself you become, the more connected to the all that you're going to feel. The more you try and cut yourself off from you to be connected to the whole, the less connected you're going to feel. Because the more of you that you cut off, the less of you there is to connect. It really is that simple. So we're all afraid to love ourselves because we think that's what's going to solidify our disconnection. When in reality, it is only through loving yourself that you're ever going to feel connected. Every single time you try and cut yourself off, you become dumber, less intelligent, less connected. Less life can come to you because you are cutting it off. So if you're afraid to love your anxiety, afraid to love your eating disorder, afraid to love your fat, afraid to love whatever, you're going to get stuck there. You're going to just keep dying. It's not going to work. All right? So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave those down below. Like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And if you have video requests, I'd love to hear it. And until next video, we'll see you later.